When you're talking about a policy, this is kind of how it looks. It's going to have a purpose. The purpose is going to describe what the document is talking about. It's going to have an authority. It's going to reach back to where the codes or the laws that come into play to implement this. And in our case, if you're working with the federal government, it might be something like a FSMA, which is a law, an act that was passed in 2002 and then again in 2014. Applicability. Who does this apply to? See how overarching policy is? It's an overview, right? You haven't even gotten to the guts of this thing yet before you get to the policy. The policy is then talking about how do we as an organization implement identification and authentication? How do we do it? How do we do it locally? How do we do it over the network? How do we do it if we have separate systems? They're normally very high level, right? So you don't normally go in the weeds. Here's an actual policy. This is online. This is freely available. You could actually follow along. This is on Office of Chief Technology Officer at octo.dc.gov. They just publicly made this available because there's no there's no IPs in this, there's no vulnerabilities in this. So here's how we do it, right? It doesn't even mention any specific technologies, right? Because a policy can be that broad. And really, the larger your organization, the more broad the policy should be, because you've got all kinds of technologies there. You can't be too specific with it that when you have an organization that large. So the purpose, you're they're describing the actual purpose of identification and authentication. The purpose is used for devices accessing the DC governments, and they're describing that as districts throughout the documentation. And it's kind of a little bit of like lawyer speak. It kind of feels like lawyer speak sometimes when you're dealing with policies. You might even have your lawyers look at it to make sure that it's robust and is covering everything.